For the rear foot elevated split squat, I'm going to be utilizing a barbell set up on a squat rack and fitted with a barbell pad. There's lots of different ways you can load this up. In fact, I actually have pieces of equipment that are basically just a bar with a pad on it and just sits on the ground. You can adjust the height. If you don't want to spend $250 on one of those guys, you can just do something like this where you set it up. You already have a barbell. I'm also utilizing a resistance band. I have a purple one back here that I've wrapped around to make sure that the bar doesn't rotate inside the J-cups. And I got this pad centered right on top of that bar with the gap facing down. The reason I like this one versus using a bench, like a regular weight bench, is your foot has to stay straight on that weight bench and it doesn't allow your ankle to really do its thing. With this variation, I can let my toes point out and my ankle to maintain that nice 90-degree angle so that I can maximize stability and I can avoid things like getting cramps or anything crazy like that. When you have the toes pointed at that extreme, it just causes some issues. You can still do it on a bench. It's not going to kill you. But if you can set up something like this would be ideal. Now, the rear foot elevated split squat, I would call a more advanced movement for two reasons. One, there's a lot of instability in there as opposed to a regular split squat where you're on the ground, both feet are on the ground. You have a lot more stability and control, or even a reverse lunge or a walking lunge, you're gonna have more control. With this one, with the rear foot elevated or raised off the ground, most of that weight and that work is gonna go by the front leg. Some people even call this the single leg squat as opposed to the pistol, the more traditional single leg squat, because it is quite difficult. The other reason it's difficult or more advanced is because it requires a very large range of motion. When you're sinking down to the bottom of this, your back hip needs to have a pretty large range of motion. Same with your hip in the front. Now, I'm going to be demonstrating this both with body weight and also with the kettlebell in the goblet position and then the dumbbells at the side position. You can also utilize a barbell. If you have another set of like independent squat racks or anything like that, you can definitely set that up, or you can just clean it into the front rack position and set up from there. I've done both a variation with the barbell on my back and a variation with the barbell on the front. They both work. There's just a lot more risk involved because if you do have to dump it, you got to make sure you clear that leg so you don't smash your femur or your knee. So when you're getting set up, I would recommend starting with the bar at about the height just below your knee. You can go lower than that, obviously, or higher, but there is a point of diminishing return where it gets too high. But start low if you're not quite sure. To get set up for this, I'm going to place the center of my ankle right where that ankle joint is, okay? Not on the foot, not on the ankle itself, but right in the center of that joint. I'm going to place that in the center of the pad. I'm going to rock my foot forward. You may have to adjust forward or backwards depending on how it feels in that bottom position. My front foot is flat, my toes are straight ahead, heels are down. My back toes are pointing down, they're not pointing out. Okay, from here I'm going to establish a nice neutral posture, shoulder blades back. I'm going to take in a nice deep belly breath. I'm going to lower myself under control, bending at that front knee and hip and allowing this back hip to extend with that knee bending. And I'm going to drive through my front leg. The other great thing about this movement, oh man, you're going to feel it in the hamstrings, the glutes, the quads. This is huge. If you're unable to do squats safely, this is a great alternative. Now, when utilizing a kettlebell in the goblet position, we first need to clean the kettlebell from the floor up to the goblet position. Center it between your feet. Line up the handle with the center of the feet. Toes straight ahead, heels down. Bend at the knees and hips. As you spread the floor apart with the feet, reach down, grab the center of the handle. Bend the handle backwards. Biceps forward. Screw the shoulders into the upper back. Taking your breath. Extend the knees and hips. Shrug the shoulders and catch that kettlebell as low as you can on those handles. Make sure the wrists are straight. Forearms are vertical. Elbows tucked in nice and tight. Resting on the rib cage. You're not going to want to readjust once you get into position here with the rear foot elevated split squat, so make sure you're in a good position. Make sure the elbows aren't flaring. You don't have that weight way out in front of you. From here, I'm going to look back, make sure I get the center of that pad. Okay, find the same foot position. Front foot is flat, toes are straight ahead. Taking my belly breath, lower myself down under control to that bottom position, come back up. If you feel like there's too much strain on your rear knee or hip, I would recommend just lowering the height of the barbell. Once you got all done on one side, go ahead and switch and move to the other side. You may have to take some time finding where that center spot is. Once complete, feet are shoulder width, lower it back down to the hips, and bend at the hips, lowering it to the ground. For the double dumbbell version, you may find this one to actually be a little bit easier because you have weight on each side as opposed to up in front of your chest. It's actually a little bit easier to help you balance. Center the feet between the dumbbells, bend at the knees and hips, extend the arms down, wrap the thumb and fingers around, taking a belly breath, extend the knees and hips. Go find the center of that pad. Front foot is flat, toes are straight ahead, shoulder blades back, belly breath. I will say this one taxes the grip a lot more, especially if you're trying to be under control and you're going anywhere from 8 to 15 reps. That's a long time to hold on to the dumbbells. Nice, smooth, controlled. Once done, bring the feet back, hip width apart. Lower them back down to the ground, under control. That's how you do the rear foot elevated split squat.